So one interesting feature that you can use, which you also have in Max, is if you hit the N key, right, you get this transform menu. You get the transform menu down here as well. But I think this is pretty handy, right? So it's telling you sort of everything you've done, right? So I'm in edit mode at the moment. I'll go into object mode by hitting tab, and if I sort of scale this guy up, right, it's giving me the info here, right? It's saying it's been scaled by 1.799. If I grab this and I hit 1, goes back. If I hit this and I hit 0, it goes back to the origin. I'll hit the period key to get to the origin, to the center of the object. I mean, frame selected, which is what it is in 3ds Max. So you have this little menu here, which is pretty helpful, right? I mean, I've also got the align tools that I've set up in this, and this you do by going to edit, preferences, you go to the add-ons, right, and the align tools are basically in this menu here, right? I'm not going to go through it all. I'm sure it's pretty easy to find, right? So, you know, I've added 3D navigation, 3D view precision tools, import, export, FBX export. These are all things that I use when I'm modeling, so I've got them in there. But the align menus in here as well, and that's where you can add it. And here you go, object align tools. So the equivalent you have in Max is this guy here, right? So if I created a if I created a second box right here, right, and I wanted to align it to this guy, I'll turn off snapping. If I do that and I do that, and it basically aligns it up, you know, do it again, bam, and then you can you know, you can change the scale and the rotation and all these other things. So you got something similar in Blender, right? We'll come here. If we go to the align tools, it's got a similar thing: align location, align rotation, align scale. This is pretty handy. At least for me, it's handy when I'm modeling stuff. So if I hit Shift A, I create a mesh. Let's create a cube. I'll hit W. Sorry, I'll hit G. Old habits die hard. GX. Move it to here. And if I want to align this to this, and I do that, and it aligns location and rotation, right? I'm going to hit G again, and I'm going to hit X, and it's moving them both. So I'll say GX and just move that out. So this is pretty handy, at least it was to me. So I think that adequately covers the pivots, the transforms, and the align, which is very handy. Just one last point that I would make before we end is the units setup. Now, as you can see, everything here is set up in meters, right? And this is the default. I mean, it isn't the default, but it's the default that I actually set up. Because meters are super important. Units are super important when you're working with things like Unity or Unreal Engine. So if you come to this menu here, it's like a triangle and these two circles, right? You click on the units menu. You've got none, which used to be the default in Blender. You've got imperial and you've got unit system. I work in metric because I'm in the UK, no longer part of the EU, but we still like our metric system. And what I would do is I would set this to centimeters. So when you export this out to something like Unity or to 3ds Max, you don't end up with crazy issues. Okay. Now this gets reset every time you start up a new scene. So every time you start up a new scene, come into here and set this up before you start working.